Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about the auto-resolve in Total War Pharaoh and how things have improved, especially compared to Total War Warhammer 3. Now in Warhammer 3, any kind of garrison, any kind of settlement, minor settlement, major settlement, walled settlement, unwalled settlement, is the kind of settlement that can reduce half your army to rubble. And also, the damage that you're taking on the types of units you're taking them on, you would, like if you have a mixed army like this is ranged units and melee units, also here mostly melee units, but with an army like the one Ramesses has over here, and by the way, he could win this particular battle on his own, you would take a significant amount of damage on the melee units. This has changed for the most part. Now, armor type still plays a role, though I think it is far more forgiving when it comes to light units, so light units will still generally take more casualties than heavier units. So the heavy infantry meta is still the case like it was in Warhammer 3. Like in Warhammer 3, what you want to do, let's say you're playing Warriors of Chaos or you're playing Scarbrand, getting a bunch of Chaos Warriors with their heavy armor, or if you're playing Cafe, a bunch of Jade Warriors, and maxing out the melee is probably the best thing to do in terms of maximizing your auto-resolve situation. And any kind of settlement would have a really bad result. However, in this game, things are different, very different in that respect. So, here's what happens. When you approach a settlement like this, a walled settlement, you're going to get a pretty poor auto-resolve result for the most part, until you start building siege equipment. Like, once you've built it, the auto-resolve result will tilt in your favor and start to reflect the actual reality that would exist in a battle. Because, like, I've got a stack and a half over here. There is no chance that the garrison and the army inside are going to be able to stop me. Especially considering we're talking about tier 1 units, tier 2 units that are in that army. Sure, there's a secondary army over here. But still, again, tier 1, tier 2 units, whereas I'm rolling around here with tier 4 units and tier 3 units, so the armies that I have here should realistically be able to smash their way through it. By the way, I kind of figured out how to utilize Ramesses in a way that makes his campaign significantly easier. You just gotta ambush Ascalon's army. Okay, so like for instance there you had a settlement being attacked by the AI, and they got wiped out, but it was like, as you might have seen there for just a split second, it was kind of 50-50 result there. So minor settlement garrisons, because obviously like if you throw a full stack against if you throw a full stack against a minor settlement which only has its garrison, it should be wiped out. And for the most part in Pharaoh that does happen. But if we're looking at the siege battle, like sieges still favor the defender somewhat, but here's what's changed. The more you build siege equipment, the more the auto-resolve starts tilting in your favor. So over here, all I have are 2 rams, and you can already see that it has tilted in my favor. If I spend another turn, I can't really because I'm going to run out of food in just a moment, but if I were to spend another turn, it would tilt even more heavily in my favor in this particular battle, and on and on and on and on. So you end up in the situation where actually engaging in a lengthy siege, one of the problems in Warhammer 3 is like engaging in a lengthy siege is there's never really any benefit to do something like that, because typically speaking you're just gonna end up screwing yourself over if you engage in a lengthy siege, whereas here in Pharaoh that is really no longer the case. Things have changed. That kind of dynamic has changed in a very significant way, and I'd argue very strongly in a positive way as well. Now I'm just gonna sell some territory. This is not really a real campaign, so maybe I can sell some territory, maybe I can get the peace agreement, maybe, you know what, I'll just take their money. So things have changed for the better. Engaging on a lengthy siege will give you a better auto-resolve result, which is, by the way, reflective of how things are in reality, if you will, because when you're thinking about the siege equipment, especially in a game like this, building a bunch of siege equipment is actually quite important to achieve a high degree of success in a campaign. or in a campaign battle, because the more siege equipment you have, the more gates you can easily smash, or you can build you can build siege towers to scale the wall, because you can't scale the walls anymore by default. So it offers a mix of possibilities that just didn't exist in the game by default. And yeah, I am playing the bankruptcy game, if you will, over here. Absolutely. By default, but I just want to showcase how it is with a minor settlement. So let's say we go to the Keech, and no, they've got the peace tree. Okay, join war. Okay, let's say we do that. Nope, they would not accept that. Let's see what options we have. Maybe you can join, like, options that involve me not selling territory. Like, this is something that's kind of annoying, that you will be doing quite a lot in a campaign, where you might, you might engage in the diplomacy game just for the sake of, like, resources over here, for instance. So yeah, I'm just gonna abuse SETI. I don't have an alliance. By the way, you probably don't want to have an alliance with SETI over here. So yeah, I've just declared war on Menepta, but I've solved my resource issues. You can create a better campaign dynamic, by the way, for yourself if you just don't, if you just set the upkeep to be lower. Though it has to be pointed out that Ramesses is in the kind of situation where even with a lower even with lower upkeep, you're still gonna have quite a few issues. Though again, there are ways to take advantage of that situation. Okay, that's okay, let's do it. So I got the gold mine, so I'm gonna take advantage of that. There are multiple ways of dealing with this. I took Ascalon, give it up, no problem. So various deals that the AI wants to give me. So now I'm just gonna march up to a minor settlement, and we're gonna see what happens here. So keep in mind, this is just Ramesses' army. So we can see here. And keep in mind, this is a decent enough garrison. We have a decent enough garrison. We have a decent level of troops. I would still win the battle. It would be a campaign victory, but it would still be a winnable encounter. But if I move my second army over here, it's not because it is a second army. I want to point out that it's not because of that situation, but rather just simply the fact that, you know, I'm actually bringing a lot of troops. We can see that the result here, like 30 units against, like, well, he's got 5 units, 6 units, 16 units, like, in total. So he's got like 16, 18 units over here, 16 versus 30, and my guys are damaged as well. We can see that I am not losing half my army. In Warhammer 3, that kind of minor settlement battle would have cost me half my army or so. Maybe even more, honestly, depends on how you handle that kind of situation. So that dynamic is a lot better. Now, some people are going to argue, well, it's not really a battle if it's not really a campaign if you can just auto-resolve your way through it. To which my reply is, you still take more casualties doing so. Like, it's not like, oh, it's just a I win button. No, you still have consequences for what you're doing. You're still gonna take more casualties, though. One thing I do like over here, let's say we give him 100,000. Okay. One of the things I do like over here, in terms of dot resolve, actual battles in Pharaoh, like manually fought battles in Pharaoh, will result in some decent level of casualties. Now, typically speaking, if you're trying to auto-resolve your way to... typically speaking, if you're trying to auto-resolve your way... if you're trying to auto-resolve your way to victory, you will take more damage. But what I do like over here, in terms of how the campaign dynamic has been changed...
This is your chance.
Let's go with some militia. What I do like about how the campaign dynamic has been changed is that the casualties you're taking in auto-resolve may actually be representative of the kind of casualties you would take if you fought the battle manually. You don't have the same kind of crazy situation that you encounter in, you know, Warhammer, where you don't have the same kind of crazy situation where an army,
to victory,
like an army that would.
Egypt's finest.
Yes, I'm going for the
Boundless
desert because
ambition.
Ramesses has their desert attrition.
Never
You don't
surrender.
encounter the same kind of situation where an army fighting a battle, an Art Resolve takes enormous casualties,
son of Cain,
as opposed to an army that ends up fighting the battle manually. So the choice of it certainly leans more towards, like, it certainly creates a better campaign dynamic where actually auto-resolving your way is something you can do. Like, you can certainly engage in a bunch of auto-resolve, like, or you can fight the battles. And while you will typically take some more damage in auto-resolve than in a manual battle, it's not the crazy situation that we constantly see, that we constantly are shown again and again in Warhammer. So, like, here over here is element, a bit of damage. Considering the number of units, I would have taken a reasonable number of reasonable amount of damage had I fought this battle manually. Anyway, and now, how do I feel about, like, the dynamic that gets created where you can get away with not having to fight this many battles? Well, I am quite happy with it. And the reason I'm quite happy with it is, like, look, I am not the kind of person who's going to sit here and say, oh, I don't want to fight any battles in a campaign. No. What I do want, however, in a campaign is the dynamic where the battles that I'm fighting are the battles that I think are more interesting. Like, I don't want to fight a bunch of garrisons. I don't want to fight a siege battle. Like, I hate sieges. I think a lot of people hate sieges, and I think I'm not alone in making that sentiment. In that particular element.
Destiny bound. My
So,
army will be
avoiding a lot of these meaningless battles, like, you can play an entire campaign on Legendary and avoid pretty much every siege in the campaign. You can play an entire campaign and fight every battle manually if that's your thing. Like, that's your decision. And I think it creates a better situation in the campaign than the one we have to deal with. Than the one we currently have to deal with in Warhammer 3, where the dynamic of the campaign is certainly pushing you. Okay, sure, Bay. Where the dynamic of the campaign is certainly pushing you to fight. Okay, let's go with Seti. The dynamic of the campaign is certainly pushing you towards, like, if you want to play optimally in Warhammer at the moment, you more or less have to fight a lot of the battles manually. And this especially gets worse in the late game, as you obviously have a lot more armies, you have more territory to control. Let's see if he was willing to give that. Yep, going bankrupt. Not much to be done about that, I'm afraid. You have a dynamic in there where unless you bring multiple armies, and even then, if you bring multiple armies to, like, a tier 5 settlement, you might still take a significant amount of casualties in Warhammer 3. Whereas here, I have not encountered a single garrison in the game where...
I fear nothing.
Okay, so I'm out of it. I have not encountered a single garrison in the game where like, even a tier 5 garrison, I have not encountered that situation where an army couldn't defeat it. Like, if I was taking an army like this against a settlement with this many troops in it in Warhammer 3, doesn't matter if we're talking about Legendary Lord army or not, I would lose. Like, I would lose easily half the army if I wouldn't lose everything completely. Now, mistakes were made in this campaign, or rather, I just can't afford 2 armies right now, but still, You get the idea. Like, it creates a better campaign dynamic, creates a better campaign experience where the battles you're fighting are not like this. This is a meaningless battle. You know you're going to win it. You know you're not going to have a challenge. It's not going to be a good time. So you can have a much better experience with the way the system is designed in Pharaoh, and I do like it. I greatly appreciate that about the game. There are things I don't necessarily appreciate about the game, like running out of money by turn 22 by just having, you know, 2 stacks, basically. I mean, granted, I am pushing it, and these are not cheap units, but all the same. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.